It's just been dramatic, huge changes.
Yeah. Lucy, kia ora. Thanks for being with us. That is Lucy Corrie there, Wellington rider, and Moana Tamaira and Martin Bosby. Thank you very much for being with us.
Lovely to be here.
Wonderful, yeah. I'm Wallace. I'm back tomorrow, Friday, 3:45. Till then.
Ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa. This is Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm Lisa Owen. Our Haere nei, Wahine toa, an absolute warrior on the water. Lisa Carrington has paddled past New Zealand's medal record to become our most decorated Olympian ever.
I'm so proud. I'm so just amazed at what actually happened this week so far, and there's so many people that support me.
One more event and then come home. We miss you.
That's right, Carrington will go for gold one more time. Shot-putting powerhouse Tom Walsh pretty much hurls it out of the park for bronze. His parents were watching on from Timaru. Pucker up, Mrs. Walsh.
The reaction of the bronze tonight, you never know, the bloody roof could blow off, couldn't you? What'll happen?
News at 5. Kia ora, ko Susana Aotearoa tēnei. Kayaka Lisa Carrington has become New Zealand's most successful Olympian ever, winning her third gold medal of the Tokyo Games and her fifth overall. Having already won the K1 200 and K2 500 events, she nailed the K1 500 this afternoon. Clay Wilson reports from Tokyo.
Carrington was again too good on her fourth consecutive day of competition. On another sweltering day in Tokyo, the 32-year-old led almost from start to finish. Her third gold from 3 events took her to the top of the Olympic gold medal list for New Zealand athletes with 5, surpassing fellow canoe sprinter Ian Ferguson. Her 6 Olympic medals in total is also the most won by a New Zealander, ahead of Ferguson, Paul McDonald and Sir Mark Todd.
New Zealand is a step closer to banning gay conversion therapy. Legislation criminalising the practice has passed its first hurdle in Parliament. All parties, except National, supported the bill. Labour MP Glenn Bennett, who was openly gay, told Parliament how, when he was a child, churchgoers prayed for him to be released from his sexuality.
I felt like I was broken. I felt like I needed to be fixed. I heard words like abomination. I am not an abomination. My God does not believe I'm an abomination. He loves me just the way I am.
National has raised concerns parents could be unfairly prosecuted. The Prime Minister has defended the government's decision earlier this year not to raise benefits by $50 a week in the budget. Newly released documents show several options were considered before a 2-stage increase was agreed on, starting with $20 this year. Jacinda Ardern says that was the right call based on officials' advice.
They had made really sound and considered recommendations to us as a government of the adjustments we needed to make to main benefit rates. So we received a lot of advice, but in the end chose to opt for the work and advice that they had given us around the shifts in benefit rates.
The Health Minister says a request for a medevac flight for Larry Page's child was made in January. RNZ has been told the Google co-founder travelled from Fiji so the sick child could be treated in an Auckland hospital. Andrew Little has told Parliament the request received by the Ministry of Health on January the 11th met all the requirements for a medevac flight and entry to New Zealand at the time.
The day after the application was received, a New Zealand air ambulance staffed by a New Zealand ICU nurse escort medevaced the child and the adult family member from Fiji to New Zealand. On arrival, the child and adult were taken immediately to an isolation environment in the hospital.
The number of Māori who have received their COVID-19 vaccine remains well down compared to the general population. The Ministry of Health says 73,000 Māori, or 8.5%, are fully vaccinated. That compares to about 14.5% for the general population. 115,000 Māori have received their first dose. The ministry has previously said it's satisfied with the discrepancy, saying the Māori population is younger. But Māori health leaders have condemned the rollout, saying it's reflecting entrenched inequalities in the health system. A child was injured in an incident in South Auckland this morning, and 3 people have been taken into custody. A person wanted by the police was spotted travelling in a vehicle in the Wattle Downs area, Kate Gregan reports.
The vehicle failed to stop and continued towards Papakura, where it was stopped by road spikes. The 3 occupants then carjacked another vehicle after forcing 2 members of the public out of the car. The vehicle drove away erratically before it collided with another car. 2 firearms have been found in the original vehicle. Police say charges will be laid. The child has been taken to Middlemore Hospital in a moderate condition.
It's 4 minutes past 5. Lisa Carrington says she learnt a lot from her Rio Olympic campaign and credits that with guiding her to the 3 gold medals she's won so far in Tokyo. The 32-year-old kayaker's win in the K1 500 this afternoon takes her career tally of Olympic golds to a record number of 5, surpassing the 4 won by fellow kayaker Ian Ferguson. She spoke to Sky Sports straight after her win.
Learning from Rio, you might have the capability to be able to have great races, but to actually execute it and do it is another thing, and it's taken me 5 years to have that courage to get back out there and do something that is really scary and hurts a lot, but I hate it, but I love it.
Carrington could yet win another gold with the K4 500 still to be contested. Meanwhile, an emotional Tom Walsh is celebrating his 2nd Olympic bronze medal after finishing 3rd in the shot put final won by American Ryan Krauser. He told Sky that while he was chasing gold, he's proud of his latest achievement, having also won bronze in Rio 5 years ago.
Feels awesome. Yeah. The last 18 months for everyone hasn't been easy. To be standing here now with the flag on my back, it's pretty cool.
That's the news.
Farming emissions at an all-time high.
We need to look at the whole picture. The dairy industry wants to make that look a lot better than it actually is.
Vaccine misinformation ripples through ports.
People who are going online and looking for information are not getting the right information. As these new variants become more infectious, we just need to up our game.
And the tuatara's speedy sperm.
Pairs will often mate multiple times within a season, and there's no way to get all of the sperm.
Separating fact from fiction. Morning Report weekdays from 6 on RNZ National.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow. In the west from Northland to Taranaki, also Bay of Plenty, Taupo and Taumaranui. Showers, some possibly heavy and thundery. Squally thunderstorms in Taranaki tonight. Strong gusty winds for Auckland tomorrow night. Gisborne to Wairarapa, occasional rain, clearing this evening. A few showers tomorrow, possibly thundery in the afternoon. Whanganui and Taihape to Wellington, occasional rain, more frequent and possibly thundery from tomorrow afternoon. Nelson, Bulla, Westland and Marlborough Sounds, periods of rain, heavy at times, possible thunderstorms, clearing Westland tomorrow morning. For the rest of Marlborough, also Canterbury, cloudy periods, scattered rain developing overnight. Otago, Southland and Fiordland, partly cloudy. Scattered rain clearing today, but coastal drizzle developing tonight in Otago. Showers in Southland tomorrow night. Chatham Islands, partly cloudy, drizzle tomorrow afternoon. Southwesterlies turning easterly tomorrow. RNZ National. It's 7 minutes past 5.
Kia ora rā, e ho tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai, haere mai, ki Checkpoint I tēnei rā, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. Wahine toa, Lisa Carrington is New Zealand's most decorated Olympic athlete. The paddler pushed through the pain barrier to win her 3rd gold of these games, bringing her career medal total to 6, eclipsing the decades-old record of 5. Back home, the crowd at Auckland's Cloud raised the roof, and Carrington's not done yet. She'll go for gold again this Saturday in the fours. Here's Lisa speaking to Sky Sport just after her race.
Just amazed at what actually happened this week so far, and I just want to, there's so many people that support me, so I'm just so fortunate to have an incredible support team.
You're an incredibly humble champion, but you are New Zealand's most decorated Olympian. Now, how does that sit with you?
Crazy. There's a lot of talk when, people are saying, oh, you could do this, you could be that. But for me, it was just making sure that I just did what I could do, not focusing too much on, the what ifs, but just going out there and just doing my best. So.
And watching her make history on the water was her fiancé, Michael Buck, taking it all in on the big screen at the Cloud on Auckland's waterfront.
I think she had it won in the last 50-odd metres, and so maybe some early celebrations started, but yeah, just relief, happiness, just so stoked for her. Yeah.
3 gold medals, 5 in total. You could say she's New Zealand's greatest Olympian. How does that feel?
I'm really happy for her. She doesn't set out to become the greatest Olympian or whatever. It's just about every single race and just trying to be better every time, and she did that. It was amazing, yeah.
And tell me, what's been your communication with her this week? What's she been saying? How's she been recovering with such a busy time?
Earlier in the week she was nervous, she was a bit scared about what was coming up in front of her, but after Tuesday and yesterday she was pretty relaxed actually, yeah.
Absolutely, and if you could send a message to her, what are you going to say when you see her?
I'd say, one more event and then come home. Yeah, we miss you.
And looking ahead to that event, do you think she's got that one in the can? She's still got that fire, still got that energy?
Oh, no doubt. I think the other 3 girls are just going to step up and ride that sort of momentum. And, I think they'll have a great shot at it.
And that was a very proud Michael Buck speaking to our reporter Louise Tenuth. And Lisa's mum, Glynis, joins me now. Kia ora, what words have you got to describe that, Glynis?
Oh, kia ora. It was bigger than life itself. I was just very emotional, actually. And it's the change between the seeing her as our daughter as to just admiring her as the most amazing woman. So, what a level.
And your emotions? You would have gone through the roller coaster. I imagine you're on the edge of the seat when you watch her.
Yeah, we were generally standing and jumping up and down, which helped.
Who was there with you, Glynis?
Okay, so we're in Aotearoa, we're Lisa's hometown, and we had lots and lots of her friends, the people who were in the surf club growing up with her. One of her very best friends, Julia, and her family was there. Her nan, our family. It was, just many, many people. Yeah.
Are your nerves getting better or worse as she gets closer to achieving this monumental goal that she set for herself?
Always. Nothing is written in stone beforehand. So that feeling of, I know that she will do her best. She always does her best, and willing that be the best that will be in that race. Yeah, it doesn't really get any better. It's, I was actually the most emotional, I suppose, I have ever been today, yeah.
And why do you think that was, Glynis? Why today?
The enormity of what she's had, she's put herself up there to do. The courage that she's had to have to go for it to start with and say, yeah, I want to do this, and then to pull it off. It's just huge. So, and, as a family, we just are in awe of the people around her who have supported her too.
So have you had a chance to talk to her after she won the first 2 golds?
Yes, we did. She FaceTimed us, which was absolutely lovely. And, that's very special to us that she takes that time to touch base and just to say how she is, and just let us, actually, more for us probably than say how proud we are of her.
Hey, I understand Pat is on the line now too. Pat, What was it like for you to watch?
Well, this time around I was pretty calm until she started. And the news just come flooding in, and it was sort of a bit of a terrible state for me. And of course, emotions were running sort of rampant, and when she did finish, I said, it was a bit teary and very emotional about the situation.
I understand you're driving Nan home. Is that right? From watching?
So that's right. I'm just parked on the side of the road, and we're just sitting here.
And how's Nan's nerves, Pat?
Oh, she looks pretty calm.
It was pretty phenomenal to watch, wasn't it? So, I mean, she has just smashed it out of the park, and she's got one more to go. She's put herself out there by telling everyone that this is what she wants to achieve.
Yes.
Do you think it's a pressure cooker situation, or how's she dealing with it?
Oh, I think she wouldn't have put herself there if she didn't feel as though she could deliver the best performance for her. She doesn't sort of do that without knowing what she can do and her capabilities. So if she's going to do it, she'll do it for herself and for her team. She wouldn't take it very lightly at all. So what has happened is through just good thinking and planning and all the preparation that's gone on before this to get here at this stage, and it has been quite a journey over the last decade for her to get to this level. So developing and growing each stage bit by bit, and with that team of coaching and support around her, and then the fiance Bucky and everyone else that's provided that support and encouragement. It's been a huge effort by everyone, but of course Lisa is the one who has the ability, and she has the talent and be able to deliver on the biggest fantastic platform for her in the Olympic history. So
yeah,
it's not going on too much, but
no, it's not. It's not. She's won 3 gold medals. You can go on as much as you like, Pat. She's your daughter. So,
yeah.
Glynis, can you tell us, I mean, how does she recover between these events? Because, she's putting everything out there, and then she's got to get up and do it again on another day.
I don't know the exact details, but I do know that it's very, very well planned. And the plan they execute, it's a well thought out plan. And as we all know, that it's worked so far. So going back, and the one thing that she talked about, we stopped and we looked at her and listened to her after her interview, and how did she do that? It was eloquent. It was so amazing about what she said, and wow, she tells the story herself. It just blows me away.
How are you going to celebrate, Glynis?
We've had a few bubbles, and I'll ring her brothers, and we'll have a talk about what's happened, and I'll ring. I've had a chat to Bucky, and just actually reflect ourselves about her.
And Pat, and Pat, before you head up, buckle up. It's going to happen again on Saturday. She's all on.
Yes, it is. Yes. It'll be such a good, a climax for the whole sport, and being amongst family and friends again up in Auckland, and just to sort of celebrate with everyone, just the achievement, the fantastic achievement this week, be just an icing on the cake for us all.
Well, thank you both for sharing it with us. We really do appreciate it. That was Lisa Carrington's mum, Glynis, and her dad, Pat, who are in a hopi. But wait, there's more. Tom Walsh bagged his 2nd bronze medal in consecutive Olympic Games. In the Pangamata, the shot put, smashing his PB, Walsh trailed 2 Americans but managed to get himself onto the podium with a monster 22.47 HIF, enough to snatch bronze. His parents, Peter and Karen, were watching on from Timaru. Our reporter Tim Brown caught up with Mr. Walsh Sr. at home.
Well, it was fantastic, really. And of course, everyone wants the gold, but I tell you what, not many people have got a bronze. So we're very, very pleased.
He wasn't able to improve on his effort in Rio, but he was able to repeat it against what looked like 2 of the best to ever do the sport.
That's exactly right, and it's a very, very strong competition, that shot putting, and there's about 10 of them are all over 22 metres, and it comes down to the nerves and the pace of the day, and today the 1, 2, 3 the same as what they were in Rio.
Now, speaking of nerves, there must have been a few nerves the other night. Are we more relaxed watching the final today, even with so much on the line?
Well, I think that the other night, of course, you were not in control, but Tom was, and I was very, very proud of the way he handled that at very high pressure situation. He didn't actually go over the top or anything else. He just questioned it, went through the process, and that was his training, if you like, and he came out the other side, and now he's the bronze medal holder.
Now, you said that the reaction to the qualification the other night was the first kiss from the wife in 10 years. Well, what was the reaction with the bronze?
Well, the reaction with the bronze tonight, you never know, the bloody roof could blow off, couldn't you? What'll happen? But if I get another kiss, I'll be very happy.
And that was Tom Walsh's dad. And as we said, Tom Walsh taking away Tohutoa Rauwhero bronze medal, and the same as what he got in Rio. So he's got a matching set now. It is 19 minutes past 5 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Kia ora rawatu mo te whakarongo mai e haere nei. Not everyone's Olympics, though, is going to plan. A New Zealand cyclist is out of the Games with a broken collarbone. Homai o whakaro, we would love to hear your feedback. Nō reira ānei no ngā kaupapa mo te hōtaka nei. Were you watching Lisa Carrington? She's not done yet. She's got the big race on Saturday to see if she can go for 4 golds. Wahine toa, wahine Māori, record breaker. Let us know your thoughts. Pātui mai, 2101 on the text. Tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, or you can email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. It's emerged Google co-founder Larry Page was able to enter New Zealand despite the COVID-19 border restrictions, but the government says he met the relevant requirements to enter the country. The American billionaire travelled here from Fiji after his child became ill and required medical treatment in an Auckland hospital. Christine Ravoy reports.
99 people have been allowed into New Zealand from the Pacific for medical treatment during the COVID-19 pandemic. They include a UN staff member who was medevaced from Fiji last week due to severe COVID complications. In January, Immigration Minister Chris Fafoy became aware of a border exemption application from one of the founders of Google.
We were told about it, but it was nothing more than the reasons that there was an issue with his son's health. I think he applied for a medical exemption to make sure his son got the treatment that was required. Don't know much more about it.
Did you let the Prime Minister know?
No, it was a process in terms of a health exception. It's something I think the Ministry of Health decided.
Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern says she wasn't involved in the decision around Larry Page's child.
The decision for a patient to be part of a medevac is made by clinicians. So no, I am not advised of every single individual, every roughly 100 people that are medevaced into New Zealand at any given time, because politicians do not make those decisions, nor should they.
Minister of Health Andrew Little told Parliament the details.
The day after the application was received, a New Zealand air ambulance staffed by a New Zealand ICU nurse escort medevaced the child and the adult family member from Fiji to New Zealand. On arrival, the child and adult were taken immediately to an isolation environment in the hospital. In the event of discharge within 14 days, the child and the adult would have been required to be transferred to an MIQ, and I am advised that all COVID-19 orders in this respect were complied with.
Fijian authorities would not comment on the matter when approached by RNZ. But New Zealand High Commissioner to Fiji, Jonathan Kerr, says criteria need to be met.
There's still a standard process. That process was followed. The decision-making is not something that's within our purview. Yeah, we had very little to do with that medevac in question, normally facilitated by employers and insurance companies, and it's not something that we typically play a very significant role in at all.
The Health Ministry says the clinical assessment beforehand includes a check that the treatment required is not available locally.
A bid to lower the voting age to 16 has seen teenagers spend the day trying to convince the Court of Appeal leaving them out is an unjustified discrimination. The group Make It 16 took the case to the High Court last year, which found not being able to vote was discrimination, but it was justified. The group disagrees, saying there's no good reason they should be excluded. Anei te kai ripoata e Manhattan.
They can get an adult passport, driver's licence, leave home, fire a gun and be charged for serious crimes. But they can't vote. Emma Moran's a lawyer for the group campaigning for the voting age to be lowered.
What Make It 16 asks is that the limit on their right to fully participate in our democracy be properly considered in a way that undoubtedly has not occurred previously. If there is a limit, it must be clear and it must be explicit.
Another of the group's lawyers, Jason McKerron, referred to numerous studies and reports which proved 16 and 17-year-olds were capable of making informed decisions. He urged the court to look closely at this issue, given the lack of political power 16 and 17-year-olds have.
16 and 17-year-olds who are politically powerless for the obvious reason that they can't vote for people who might be inclined to reduce the voting age. And because there has been no appetite to do that for such a long time, those features in this case actually make it more important that the court seriously engages with the topic.
A lawyer for the Attorney-General, Austin Powell, told the court the voting age was clearly defined.
It should be possible for a person of ordinary intelligence who reads the Bill of Rights Act to read it and understand what it means. And if such a person were to pick up the Bill of Rights Act and were asked the question, so what does it say about the voting age? The answer would be, well, it's 18. It's there, it's set out in Section 12.
Lawyers for the Attorney-General also argued that the age of 18 is widely accepted elsewhere. But Jason McKerron said their arguments don't explain why 16 and 17-year-olds aren't allowed to vote.
My friend referred to the fact that the majority of countries do, of course, have a minimum voting age of 18. That is true, just as until the mid-1950s, the majority of countries had prohibited women from voting.
And while a decision in favour of Make It 16's argument wouldn't lower the voting age, it would give the issue a platform, forcing Parliament to take a closer look. The judges have reserved their decision.
And to Australia now, New South Wales has seen its worst day yet with 262 new COVID cases and 5 more deaths. Not only that, but the outbreak has spread beyond Sydney. COVID has turned up in wastewater around the state, and 2 schools north of Sydney are closed after several students tested positive. Joining us now live from Sydney for 9 News is Charles Croucher. Charles, well, the news is all bad it seems today, so are they clamping down harder in terms of the lockdown?
Well, there's clamping down more people in the lockdown. Now the area of Newcastle and parts of the Hunter Valley, which is effectively outside of Sydney, the biggest area of New South Wales, will now go into a short lockdown just a week. The hope is that that will be enough to stem off this tide, but it just continues to spread. And what we're now seeing in other jurisdictions, Queensland, Victoria, for the first time today, Tasmania, is that these cases keep popping up, and it's proving much harder to contain this Delta strain than the other strains that we've faced in the past. New South Wales continues to, in a weird way, bubble along. It's not the huge jump that we've seen in the past when there's been outbreaks in other countries. You know, we've been hovering between 180 and 260 today's number for quite some time. The problem is it's staying there, and the number of potential exposure sites are staying high as well. And in terms of further restrictions, you're still starting to run out of things that can be done when it comes to the Premier and her team and any further restrictions on New South Wales residents.
And your Premier, every day when she gives the numbers, also talks about the people who are in hospital, right? And, I mean, the age groups of some of those people is it's pretty startling stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, very young, and whether this is because the strain is particularly impacting younger people, or more likely it's because the strain is impacting the unvaccinated, and because of the way Australia has done its rollout, they are young people. And that's why we've seen this big push, particularly in New South Wales, to get everyone vaccinated quicker. And there's no more waiting for certain brands that provide less of a threat or less of a risk to young people. Now it is very much an acceptance from everyone that the real risk comes from the virus, and that's why any form of vaccination is being preferred for anyone over 18. And even now, we're hearing about the vulnerable or immunocompromised people under the age of 18, between 12 and 18, like we've seen over in the United States. Those people are now being offered vaccinations as well. And you've got to think, New South Wales at this time of year is about to head into some really busy periods, be it through festivals of sport, festivals culturally, Year 12, our final year exams for school students. They're still not sure how or when or where that will take place. And so there's a lot of confusion coming up. And then, people are now seriously looking at Christmas and thinking, is that the time? Because there will be weddings planned for the spring, all kinds of events that are being cancelled now, and people are starting to glance all the way to Christmas and wonder if that's going to be our present and if vaccination is the only way out.
Charles, you mentioned schools, right? So this is slightly different to a lockdown here in New Zealand, where students were taught from home over the internet and, Zoom classes and all the rest of it. I know a couple of schools have closed because they're directly affected, but what is the deal with other schools through the state?
So in Sydney, and in particular in those hotspots, schools are closed and homeschooling is going on. If you are an essential worker and you need to send your children to school, you can. But it's certainly run on a skeleton staff, and most learning is done over the internet. However, outside of Sydney, the rest of New South Wales is operating as usual. There are changes and trying to implement social distancing and some of the, quicker drop-offs, and people can't mingle and there's no visitors to the school, but it's still essentially a school. For exams, in the past, they've done those via the online test, but of course that's fraught with the potential for rorting and cheating. What we will see next week, or what the plan is next week for those senior students, the Year 12 students, to go back to face-to-face learning for their trial exams and then their exams. That's the plan at the moment. Whether the Premier and her team can get all those in the hotspot areas vaccinated before they go back to school or not, we'll wait and see. And there are just so many ifs and buts and question marks about how this will all be done. To have to be answered pretty quickly, because again, these kids are revising for their final year exams and still don't know what, where or how the exams will take place.
Good to talk to you, Charles. Thanks for joining us. That is Charles Croucher from 9 News in Sydney. E te iwi e haere nei I our checkpoint. The Wallabies are looking to break an Eden Park losing streak this weekend. New South Wales takes another COVID hammering, as you just heard, and a survey shows more than 70% of police officers want a gun on their hip. Homai o whakaaro. Send us your feedback. Love to hear from you about anything that's been on the program so far this evening. You can text us on 2101, tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, or flick us an email. The address is checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. It is time now for the headlines with Susanna.
Kayaka Lisa Carrington has become New Zealand's most successful Olympian, winning her 3rd gold medal of the Tokyo Games and her 5th overall. Having already won the K1 200 and K2 500 events, she nailed the K1 500 this afternoon. Meanwhile, shot putter Tom Walsh has won his 2nd Olympic bronze medal. Parliament has moved a step closer to banning gay conversion therapy after legislation criminalising the practice passed its first hurdle today. All parties supported the bill except National, which has raised concerns that parents could be unfairly prosecuted. Labour MP Glenn Bennett told Parliament how, as a child, churchgoers prayed for him to be released from his sexuality. The Prime Minister has defended the government's decision earlier this year not to raise benefits by $50 a week in the budget. Documents show several options were considered before a 2-stage increase was agreed on, starting with $20 this year. Jacinda Ardern says that was the right call based on officials' advice. The Health Minister says a request for a medevac flight for Larry Page's child was made in January. RNZ has been told the Google co-founder travelled from Fiji so the sick child could be treated in an Auckland hospital. Andrew Little says the request met all the requirements for a medevac flight and entry to New Zealand at the time. The number of Māori who have received their COVID-19 vaccine remains well down compared to the general population. The Ministry of Health says 73,000 Māori, or 8.5%, are fully vaccinated. That compares to about 14.5% of the general population. Māori health leaders say the figures reflect entrenched inequalities in the health system. A child has been injured and 3 people have been taken into custody following an incident in South Auckland this morning. The police were attempting to stop an individual who had arrest warrants in the Wattle Downs area. The vehicle failed to stop and continued towards Papakura, where it was stopped by road spikes. Those are the latest news headlines on RNZ National. Our next news and weather update is at 6.
Thanks, Susanna. No mai hoki mai. If you're just joining us, this is Checkpoint. Ko Lisa Owen tēnei. Ko taku hoa I nai anei, ko no Nona Peltier, who's in the studio to talk business. Let's start with the fresh produce grower and marketer, TNG Global. Now, they've got a sharply reduced half-year profit. What's going on?
Yeah, so their profit was down 64% to just $3.4 million, and that was against sales dropping 3% to $652.1 million. So lots of additional costs in there, partly because of supply chain problems. So the company hopes to have addressed these now. They've chartered 4 ships so to help them with their import and exporting. That was badly affected in the first half. On top of that, they led into the first half. This is for the period ending June 30th. At Christmas, there was a big hailstorm, people might recall, in Nelson. And it was a significant storm, one of the worst that they had, and in some cases wiped out their entire crop of stone fruit, early season stone fruit. Also damaged apples, which they produce and are rather handle for other growers. So that was another hit. And then on top of that, they didn't have enough staff. So on an average day, they were 300 people short in the field. And that really left a lot of fruit on the trees and were on the ground. And so what they've done is they've addressed that by looking at how they can increase the number through a government program. But they've also created 150 permanent positions for New Zealanders. So that's going to help with their workforce. And in the meantime, they have a long-term strategy to automate. That's going to take some time because the way that works requires a mapping of orchards and so on so that the robots know where to go.
Financial Markets Authority, it's a bit worried about inexperienced investors using online retail services like Sharesy and Hatch. I mean, what's the problem with that?
Well, they were unsure because a number of these people who are doing this type of investment, only 6% of them get financial advice. That's not very many. And considering that some of them are putting quite a lot of money through these retail online platforms, it's growing in popularity. I think the most of the people who are involved are what they describe as European males between the ages of 25 and 35. So they're relatively young, and they have a kind of a gung-ho, I can afford to lose it type of attitude. Now, this is a survey of nearly 2,000 people, and so what they found was that a lot of the reasons why people are doing that is because they like the social aspect. It's something to talk to their mates about, that kind of thing. About 40% or nearly 50 actually are in it for the long term. So that's fine. But there's an awful lot who are not in it for the long term. They're for the quick hits and so forth. And that is an issue because if you're not taking advice and you're just following your gut or you're not doing any research and you're not taking any advice, you are in a high-risk category for losing your cash. And I think the FMA is concerned about that and are probably going to do more to make sure that these types of investors are better informed or at least have an opportunity to become better informed. There you go.
Okay, let's take a whiz around the market, shall we, Nona?
Let's do that. So we fell 43 points. That's the NZX Top 50 Index, and that was 1/3% down to 12,754. The dollar is still steady and holding well at 70.5 US cents, 95.3 Australian, and 50.7 British pence.
Thanks, Nona. Nona Peltier with Business News. Well, Tom Walsh, the builder from Timaru, is now the proud owner of 2 Olympic bronze medals. Walsh heaved a 22.47 throw to put himself on the podium, alongside Americans Ryan Crozier and Joe Kovacs. The trio making Olympic history for earning the same result in the same event back in the Olympics. And guess what? Tom joins me now. Kia ora, Tom. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you for that. It wasn't...
Are you there, Tom?
The Olympics this time around, but it didn't quite come to fruition, but I put myself in a position where it could have happened, which, I'm proud about.
Hey, Tom, we just lost you for a second there. I think you're on the bus, aren't you? Are you heading back to the village, or where are you off to?
Yes, I'm heading back to the village. We were just going through a few tunnels and things like that.
Okay, so tell me, we saw the pictures of you, glorious. You had the flag wrapped around your shoulders, you get the medal around your neck. What were the emotions you were feeling then?
Oh, definitely pride, for sure. I think everyone's been through so much in the last 2 years, and to know that I came to the Olympics in good form and in good shape, and probably in PB shape. It means a lot. And, we've had to go through some, times of second-guessing yourselves and wondering a few things. And to come here and perform so well, I'm really happy with.
So the thing is, obviously, with COVID, there was a lack of international competition. It's hard to know how you're doing against everybody else. What difference did that make to your Olympic campaign, do you reckon?
Oh, look, that was one of the big question marks, and that was one of the reasons why I left New Zealand in early May this year to come over, to the Northern Hemisphere and to get some competitions in, and to the athletes who didn't have that option and did extremely well from New Zealand. I couldn't imagine doing it. I know how nervous I was, even having some competitions under the belt and kind of knowing where I was sitting. So. I think that was a really important thing for me, and that is, one of my whys of why I do this sport. I do this sport to compete at the top level as much as I can, and to have that taken away last year especially was very tough.
So watching you here in the office, man, I had a knot in my tummy for you because it was pretty hard out and stiff competition. How do you tap into your inner beast and just get the job done?
Well, I think the thing is, between the three of us, Ryan, Joe and myself, we know that each of us are going to be in world record shape kind of thing when it comes to the big dance. And so you kind of just got to show up and you've got to put your big boy pants on and get your work done. And, as I said earlier, I gave myself a chance to throw really well. I had 3 good cracks at it. And look, my timing was just not quite bang on and good enough to win, but at least I gave myself a chance to have a really good throw and coming away with a bronze. Yes, it is a little bit frustrating, but also I'm very proud of myself and very proud of the team around me and how we got here from what the last 18 months, 2 years have been.
You're a double Olympic medalist, and guess what? That second bronze got your dad a kiss.
Yeah, well, I've already been told about his interview, which, he's never let the truth get in the way of a good story, my father. So, it's good for him.
Hey, we want to really get into the nitty-gritty here, Tom. We want to know some secrets. What's the breakfast of a champion like yourself? What did you eat before you went out there today?
The tricky thing is, when you're in a dining hall that has, probably every delicacy in the world, they're sometimes a bit overwhelming. But, so I kind of just go with the tried and true scrambled eggs, some pita bread actually, rather than toast, and some sausages and some bacon on the side. So a pretty Kiwi breakfast and a little bit of fruit. Nothing too special.
And so you're sharing a room, haven't you been?
No, we're actually very lucky since we're in the last week of the games that pretty much half the New Zealand team has left, so we're all got our own rooms. The beds are pretty small, but I've pushed them together so that I'm kind of sleeping on, half of one, so I don't roll off the other side and hurt myself.
Are these the cardboard beds, Tom?
Yes, these are the cardboard beds, and they seem to be holding my weight up all right, so I think they're okay.
Fantastic. Hey, it was a pretty heart-stopping journey to get through to the finals, right? And when you were called the other day and we were all sitting here with our hearts in our mouths thinking it was all over for you, how did you keep so cool, calm and collected?
Oh, usually when there's a foul throw, you have a foul, you know that it's a foul throw. And I didn't feel it at all or anything like that. So I was pretty sure that they were going to overrule it. And I was very lucky that we had a New Zealand official out there as well, Trevor, and he was in charge of the competition, and he was like, I've got no idea where they called that for you. So his immediate reaction was pretty positive, and I thought that it was going to get overturned, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so you're on the bus going back to the village. What's the celebration look like for you?
Well, things are a little bit tougher in Japan at the moment, as I'm sure you're aware. So it's You can Uber eat some food and some beverages through the gate. So we might have to get 1 or 2 beers in, but we'll just keep that hush-hush. Don't tell anyone about that.
No.
And yeah, so it'll just be quite nice. And I think just with my support team that's here and just sitting on one of the balconies overlooking the harbour and just chewing the fat.
And soak up the moment. You got 2 medals now.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was one pretty cool thing that all 3 of us went around the track together pretty slowly, I'll say that, as a lap of honour, but it was a pretty cool moment just to walk around the stadium and kind of have that 10 or 15 minutes to think about what we've all achieved, yeah.
Phenomenal. And do you reckon you're going to be back for another Olympics?
Oh, yep, for sure. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Good man, and congratulations. It was phenomenal to watch you, and we're really super, super pleased for you. Appreciate your time, Tom. That is Tom Walsh, who's got two Olympic medals. He won bronze again, really just repeating what he did in Rio. Great man there going. He's going to get some Uber Eats, but don't tell anyone, with a couple of beverages, he reckons. Our South Island reporter Tim Brown and cameraman Nate McKinnon shot around Tom's old haunts this afternoon, and they caught up with his former PE teacher and coach Gavin Miller at Timaru Boys.
I'm certainly no expert when it comes to shot put and a number of other things, but to be fair, I think for Tom's sake, throwing close to 22.50, back-to-back bronze medals, and particularly in a competition where the guy that's won it looks like potentially the best shot putter of all time, probably, and the other guy is in the top probably 3 or 4 of all time as well. So I think from Tom's point of view, maybe he's thrown pretty close to his full potential and just come up against 2 guys who are outstanding at what they do.
So a pretty proud day for Timaru Boys and the town as a whole, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, a community like this, anytime you get anybody at a New Zealand level is outstanding. To get somebody to go to the Olympics is a step above, and to get somebody to medal at the Olympics is pretty close to the ultimate. So it's just a real buzz for everyone involved, and the fact that he's very much a local boy the whole way through. Family still live in town. He's still very connected to the school and spends time both at the school and in the local community, makes it a wee bit more special.
And I understand you were his teacher at school at some point. What was he like at school?
Tom? He was good. He had some learning challenges, which he's talked about and does some work around now, but he was a positive kid at school. He did his best. Nothing fazed him very much in the classroom, round school and sports teams. He was pretty easy to be around and to be involved with. So, yeah, those would be my memories.
What was his athletic prowess like there?
Got better and better. The thing at the time when Tom was at school and as a senior at school, Jacka Gill was a sort of phenomenon who was a few years younger. It's probably a bit reflective of Tom's sort of character that he kept going, did his own thing, has kept improving, was really well-rounded, did a lot of other things. And obviously when he left school, decided that shot put was going to be his thing. So that's what he's done.
And he was just known as Tom the Builder from Timaru.
Yeah, he's just Tom Walsh from Timaru, I suppose. Yeah, he is. And to a lot of other guys, he's the guy that they played cricket or rugby or hockey with, or was in class with, or knocked around with socially. And yeah, he's just a Timaru boy.
It is 13 minutes to 6. I'm Lisa Owen and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Hey, Muriaki ina pita pita kōrero. After the news at 6, we'll be live in Tokyo, where our most decorated Olympian, Lisa Carrington, has collected her 3rd gold these Games. The police commissioner says he will not routinely arm his officers, despite a new survey showing 3/4 of the force want to be armed. It's a decision that solely rests with him, but it's something the Prime Minister has also ruled out. The Police Association, which commissioned the survey, says there's been a blurring of politics and policing in recent years, and the politicians need to step back. Our police reporter Ben Strang has the details.
About 6,000 of the Police Association's near 11,000 members were surveyed, and 73% say they now support general arming, the highest level in a decade. The rise comes as gun crime hits record levels and in the wake of a number of police shootings, including the murder of Constable Matt Hunt last year. But Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern says despite the risks, she doesn't want to see officers with guns on their hips. Asked if she was ruling out the arming of police while she was Prime Minister, Ardern said,
I've long been of that view, and look, I share that view as the daughter of a policeman, and so for me the safety of our police is top of mind. That's why quick access to arms when our police need them is critical, but it's a very big difference to say having them available quickly in their vehicles to them carrying them with them 24/7.
Police Minister Portal Williams also ruled out the prospect of police being armed when asked at Parliament today.
It fundamentally changes our relationship with the police. We have a relationship that's about trust and about approachability, and general arming will fundamentally change that.
So are you rolling it out?
I have. Yep, I have.
The problem is, according to the Policing Act, it's not a decision for politicians to make. The general arming of cops or the decision not to arm police, as is the case currently, is left up to the Police Commissioner. Politicians are supposed to butt out of operational decisions, but the president of the Police Association, Chris Cahill, says he's concerned at what he sees as a merging of policing and politics.
There has definitely been a blurring of the line between politicians and police independence, and that needs to be looked at. And the bottom line is that the Prime Minister will not make this decision because it's not her decision to make.
Chris Cahill says the people Commissioner Andrew Costa should be listening to are his frontline officers. 1 in 4 of those general duties officers surveyed said they'd faced down a gun in the past year, while 1 in 8 officers overall said they'd come across a gun during the past 12 months.
These are the officers that are actually facing the fundamental changes that have already occurred in society. Those changes around risk to them and risk to members of the community out there because of firearms. So their opinion's the most important, I think.
Andrew Costa did not criticise the Prime Minister for her comments today or in the past about the general arming of the police, but made it clear that it's a decision he would make.
There's a very good reason why we are operationally independent under statute, and that's to ensure that politics don't play into decisions about law enforcement in an appropriate way. However, politicians are elected to represent the views of the public, and the public has a strong interest in this conversation. So there's a place for public dialogue and public discussion, and we welcome the debate, but also recognise that we need to stand apart from that.
And Mr Costa says the decision around arming his force, for now, is a simple one. It's not happening.
For every incident you can point to where being armed would have made our people safer, you can point to others where it would likely have made things worse. We have a lot of incidents we could point to where people have made the right decision to withdraw for their own safety and have apprehended the offender later. Having a firearm in those situations could well lead to escalation. The other part of this is the evidence that we have available to us suggests that being armed doesn't necessarily improve officer safety, but more people are likely to be shot. And so we have to select the things that will make the biggest difference.
Andrew Costa says instead officers are being put through extra training for high-risk situations, and the police are working to get highly trained staff on shift at all times, ready to respond to high-risk situations.
New Zealand is a step closer to banning gay conversion therapy, with legislation criminalising the practice passing its first hurdle in Parliament this afternoon. All political parties except National supported the legislation at its first reading. Political reporter Katie Scotcher was watching the debate.
It's a practice with no scientific basis, a treatment claiming to cure people of their sexuality, but instead doing harm. Conversion therapy is illegal in some parts of the world, but not New Zealand. The Justice Minister Chris Whāwhoi says it's past time for change.
Madam Speaker, we want to make a very firm statement that conversion practices do not work. They cause harm for people who are going through the process of being who they are.
The Green MP Elizabeth Kerekere says people who practice conversion therapy must be held to account.
People who have had this happen to them deserve some justice. Should we get more to a point where those congregations decide to learn from their mistakes, that they apologise for the harm they have caused and they beg forgiveness from their God and their communities for what they have done.
Labour's Aisha Verrill pointed to the suffering those who've been through conversion therapy experience. She described it as a sick and bizarre practice.
All our young people should grow up with a sense of pride in themselves. Conversion therapy is monstrous. It is not therapy, it is hate.
In April, the National leader Judith Collins pledged her party's support for the ban, saying she'd been convinced after Googling conversion therapy and speaking to the party's youth wing.
We think that's the right thing to do. None of us have any truck with anybody being bullied or told that they're wrong when they're dealing with their sexuality.
But National was the only party today to vote against the legislation. Simon Bridges says the caucus supports the bill's intent, but not as it is currently worded. He wants the legislation tightened to ensure parents are protected from prosecution.
Parents should be allowed to be parents and to explore sexuality and gender with their children.
It leaves the caucus at odds with its youth wing. The president of the Young Nats, Stephanie Ann Ross, says she's deeply disappointed. The group has long supported a ban on conversion therapy and said while the bill isn't perfect, the problems should be ironed out at Select Committee. The bill is headed there now, giving the public a chance to have their say.
It is 5 minutes to 6. Kia amo tonu mai. Stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. The Wallabies are hoping to make history when they take on the All Blacks at Eden Park on Saturday night. Australia haven't triumphed at the ground in 35 years, and the Auckland Fortress will be home to the first two Bledisloe Cup games. That means the Wallabies will have to win at least one if they're to reclaim the trophy they haven't held since 2002. Rugby reporter Joe Porter has more.
That'll be the end of the game, guys. Not here, not at Eden Park.
The All Blacks again proving too strong for Australia at Eden Park last year, as they have each time they've met at the stadium since 1986. But rather than be daunted by the prospect, the Wallabies back Reece Hodge says they're embracing their chance at history.
There's no shying away from the fact that it's been a long time since we've had success there, and we want to be the team, the 2021 squad that changes it and breaks that, hoodoo.
Hodge believes breaking that hoodoo would have long-lasting impacts on the strength of Wallabies rugby.
I've grown up watching the golden era of Australian rugby, and there was a lot of success in the late 90s and in the early 2000s, and that's kind of what inspired me to want to pull on the gold jersey. Hopefully, we can be that team that inspires that next generation.
Many of the current Wallabies could be considered the next generation, and veteran midfielder Matt Tormua believes that injection of youth could help them shake off the shackles of Eden Park.
Positive side of this group is it is a fairly new group, so maybe those scars don't run so deep. We've got kind of the ignorance of youth.
The All Blacks coach Ian Foster has made 3 changes to the starting 15 from the one that beat Fiji last month, with lock Brodie Retallick, Lucy Dalton-Papali'i and winger Rieko Ioane coming in, while Sevu Reece switches from the left to the right wing and Adi Savia moves from number 8 to open side. Aaron Smith will start at halfback in his 100th test. Foster says Smith is iconic.
He's helped shape this team the last 10 years, the way he's played. He's a guy that's got total devotion to his core skills, has become a real leader in this group.
And Smith isn't the only one providing motivation for the All Blacks, with Foster also inspired by New Zealand's feats at the Tokyo Olympics.
Oh, it's hard not to. I spoke earlier in the week about both our sevens teams and how proud they did us, but there's so many others, isn't there? I watched Dylan Smith and I thought that was outstanding, watching the trampoline. Talk about tense, so that final jump of his was outstanding.
Those sentiments echoed by All Blacks hooker Cody Taylor, who's been glued to the golden run in the canoe sprints.
Watching Lisa Carrington do what she's doing on the K1 and stuff, that is, she's just a step above everyone else, and she's almost changed the game in her sport.
And it's not just the medal winners who are galvanising the All Blacks, with first 5 Richie Mo'unga even considering a change of sport to get himself to the next Olympics.
Last week, that's all we talked about was the Olympics, just sort of how inspiring it was. I'm just a huge follower in the weightlifting. David Letty was awesome last night, 11 kg PB, and seeing athletes come back to the village, guys performing the haka for them. It's like we had to sit down and think, all right, well, how are we going to get to the next one? Maybe the 81 kg weightlifting, that's it, probably my only chance.
The Wallabies' chances of ending a 35-year losing streak at Eden Park haven't been helped by the suspension of a trio of players from the Test, including star-back Marika Korombete for breaching team drinking protocols. But if they were to win,
I couldn't think of anything better than winning at Eden Park.
For prop James Slipper, who's been trying to beat the All Blacks at the ground for a decade, victory would taste just as sweet as winning Olympic gold.
And some of your feedback before 6 on the issue of whether police should be armed, and we're talking about permanently with a sidearm. This person says, arm the police now. We need to support them as they are confronted with firearms so much now. But the Prime Minister, Poto Williams, and the Commissioner are too PC to even the odds a bit. On the other side of the coin, someone says, in regards to police wanting to be armed, keep in mind the Police Association is a union that represents 50 to 60% of officers. So 70% of that, 50 to 60% of the membership that want to be armed so 70% of that is 50 to 60% of membership that want to be armed, not 70% of all the police. On the legal action with 16-year-olds wanting to get the vote, this person says, if children get the vote, I'm leaving the country. Bit dramatic. Fleur says it's great to see people aged 16 wanting to take an active part in the democracy that controls and affects our lives. For people who don't want the country's decisions skewed by this demographic, there may be merit in exploring a youth parliament whose role is to feed into the mainstream with informed process and decision-making. It could provide a legitimate place for keen political aspirants to learn the ropes and have professional development tailored with their input.
RNZ News at 6. Ngā mihi nui ko Susana Leatao with DNA. Kayaker Lisa Carrington has become New Zealand's most successful Olympian by winning her 5th gold medal in Tokyo. Her K1 500 victory today follows wins in the K1 200 and then the K2 500 with Caitlin Regal. Sports editor Stephen Hewson reports.
Carrington's latest achievement puts her in front of fellow kayaker Ian Ferguson, who won 4 Olympic gold medals. All up, she's won 6 Olympic medals. The only one that's not gold is the K1 500 bronze from Rio 5 years ago. She's also the first New Zealand woman to win a hat-trick of gold medals at the One Olympics, and could yet add more to her tally with the K4 500 still to come.
Carrington's fiancé Michael Buck says he's in no doubt she can win a 4th gold on Saturday, and he's revealed she's had some pre-race nerves.
Earlier in the week she was nervous, she was a bit scared about what was coming up in front of her, but after Tuesday and yesterday she was pretty relaxed actually, yeah.
Michael Buck says he's looking forward to having her back home. New Zealand's other medal at the Games today came from Tom Walsh when he replicated his Rio success by taking bronze in the shot put. American Ryan Krauser defended his title with a record throw. New Zealand is a step closer to banning so-called gay conversion therapy. Legislation criminalising the practice has passed its first hurdle in Parliament. All parties except National supported the bill at its first reading this afternoon. National's Justice spokesperson Simon Bridges says he supports the bill's intent but not its current wording. He says right now it could prevent parents from having a say in whether their children can take puberty blockers and hormones.
Parents should be allowed to be parents and to explore sexuality and gender with their children.
Simon Bridges says the party could change its position if changes are made in select committee. The government says it has reached a milestone of 8,000 additional public housing placements. The Prime Minister celebrated the milestone at the opening of 6 new one-bedroom state homes in the Christchurch suburb of Spraydon this afternoon. Jacinda Ardern says 85% of homes created by Kāinga Ora are now new builds, compared to 50% when she came into office. She says the government remains on track to add 18,000 public and transitional housing places by 2024. Some Wellington organisations and businesses have formed an alliance protesting at the direction of the region's major transport program, Let's Get Wellington Moving. Progress Wellington, which includes the airport, business associations and the Chamber of Commerce, says current projects will slow the city down. The Chamber's Chief Executive Simon Arcus says they are struggling to get their voice heard.
There are unusual and silly decisions being made, and there is a lack of consultation. So what we want to do is get things back on track, and we want to be supportive, optimistic and positive, but equally call them out on the fact that things just aren't happening in the capital.
Simon Arcus says current proposals are piecemeal and more effort needs to be put into the major infrastructure projects. A leader of Tauranga Moana and Te Ao Māori has been laid to rest today. Kihi Ngātai, who died at the weekend aged 91, has been buried at Epeha Urupa next to his late wife Maria. Te Aotearoa Rolleston reports.
Kihi and Maria Ngātai were the first Māori to open a kiwi fruit orchard. Dr Ngātai went on to fill several governance roles for iwi and hapu and worked with the Waitangi Tribunal. In 2006, he was awarded a Queen's Birthday Honour and in 2014 an honorary doctorate. Hundreds have shared final messages of farewell to him, and many came to Whareroa Marae over the past few days to pay their respects.
It's 6:04. The effort of winning 3 gold medals and becoming New Zealand's most successful Olympian is taking its toll on kayaker Lisa Carrington. Her win in the K1 500 in Tokyo this afternoon takes her career tally of Olympic gold medals to 5, surpassing the 4 won by fellow kayaker Ian Ferguson. She also won gold in the K1 200 and the K2 500, but told Sky Sport going solo over 500 metres is tough.
The way that I approach that 500 is about just emptying the tank completely. So, I mean, it's just a completely different race, and into the headwind it's just a bit longer. But the strategy has to stay the same for me. So, yeah, I mean, it hurt a lot, but it just means I gave everything. So, really happy.
In other sport, All Blacks coach Ian Foster has made 3 changes to the starting 15 to play the Wallabies at Eden Park from the one that beat Fiji last month. Lock Brodie Retallick, Lucy Dalton Papali'i and winger Rieko Ioane come into the lineup, while Sevu Reece switches from the left to the right wing and Adi Savia moves to number 8. New Zealand's cricketers will visit Pakistan for the first time in 18 years next month to play 3 one-day internationals and 5 T20 matches. Top teams have avoided touring there because of security concerns since 2009, when a bus carrying Sri Lankan cricketers was attacked. Pakistan Cricket has confirmed the tour will start on September the 17th. That's the news.
Tonight on Nights, this week's overseas correspondent, Brian McDonald's on the line from Russia. Teenage techie Charlie Cuff explains data mining. And Duncan McGillivray teases out the potential reality behind the science fiction of the Terminator movies. Not so much the miracle of Arnie's one-liners, but robots that can seemingly reform themselves after being blasted apart. On Nights with me, Brian Crump, after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow. In the west from Northland to Taranaki, also Bay of Plenty, Taupo and Taumaranui. Showers, some possibly heavy and thundery. Squally thunderstorms in Taranaki tonight. Strong gusty winds for Auckland tomorrow night. Gisborne to Wairarapa, occasional rain clearing this evening. A few showers tomorrow, possibly thundery in the afternoon. Whanganui and Taihape to Wellington. Occasional rain, more frequent and possibly thundery from tomorrow afternoon. Nelson, Buller, Westland and Marlborough Sounds. Periods of rain, heavy at times, possible thunderstorms. Clearing Westland tomorrow morning. For the rest of Marlborough, also Canterbury, cloudy periods but scattered rain developing overnight. Otago, Southland and Fiordland, partly cloudy. Scattered rain clearing this evening. Coastal drizzle developing tonight in Otago. Showers in Southland tomorrow night. Chatham Islands, partly cloudy. Drizzle tomorrow afternoon. Southwesterlies turning easterly tomorrow. RNZ National, 7 minutes past 6.
Kia ora rā e ho, no mai hoki mai. If you're just joining us, this is Checkpoint, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. Lisa Carrington has become New Zealand's most successful Olympian, adding another gold medal, or tohu toa, to her haul today. She's won the K1 500 to claim her 3rd Olympic gold medal of these games. Our reporter Clay Wilson joins us now from Sea Forest Waterway. Clay, you've been speaking to Lisa Carrington. What does she have to say?
Kia ora, Lisa. Yeah, well, what a day for Lisa Carrington. There was, of course, no fans here in the stands at the Sea Forest Waterway today, But there was a round of applause for Lisa Carrington before her press conference with media today, and you have to think it's the least she deserved. You've mentioned the facts already, but they bear repeating. 5 Olympic gold medals, 3 alone at these games, and there was a lovely moment in today's press conference where the Hungarian rower who picked up silver basically said for her silver was like gold, such as the stature of Lisa Carrington. And Lisa Carrington had to dig very deep for this in what are oppressively hot conditions here in Tokyo today. And you saw the toll it took on her. She had to be dragged out of her boat by her teammates, and it was several minutes before she rose to her feet and could have a few celebratory hugs with those teammates. Now, I spoke to her in the press conference, and here's what she had to say about her historic achievement.
Growing up, to be an Olympian was kind of the epitome of who you wanted to be. They represented so many good values, and so I think for me, something I never thought I would be able to do, or I've just taken it as I've gone through my career. So yeah, I mean it's amazing. I guess I'm just proud of where I come from.
This is obviously viewed as hugely significant at home. When do you think it'll dawn on you what you've achieved? And also with the K4 coming up, how are you feeling physically? You were obviously exhausted when you got off the boat here today.
I think when I'm sitting in managed isolation for those 2 weeks, I think I'll figure it out then. So yeah, I don't know. I'll just take it as it comes. I mean, it's been such a huge week, and the last 5 years have been massive as well. So. I think it will dawn on me, but I've got really great people to be able to kind of help me decompress from this week. But yeah, super excited to get back into the K4 with my teammates. They've been chomping at the bit to get back on the water and race. So it's super. They're excited, and I think I can feed off that energy. So I'm looking forward to it.
Wahine toa Lisa Carrington there. And as you mentioned, Clay, and as she talked about, it ain't over yet, is it?
Yeah, of course. Despite all she's achieved already at these games, she may not be done with the medals or even the gold medals. The K4, the final boat for this women's canoe sprint team, they've got their heats tomorrow and then hopefully through to the semi-finals on Saturday, with the finals also to follow on Saturday. And you have to think, given the form Lisa Carrington's shown, Caitlin Regal getting up for second in the B final today, showing good form, that they're a very good chance to perhaps win that event, and Lisa Carrington could walk away with 4 gold medals or even just another medal to add to the 6 she already has as the New Zealander with the most medals and the most gold medals in history.
So we're kind of coming to the end of the Games, Clay, but what else do we still need to keep an eye on and have to look forward to?
Yeah, well, as well as that K4 canoe sprint over the next couple of days, tonight we have Nick Willis, the veteran 1500 metre runner. At his 5th games, has made it into the semi-finals for a 5th time and pushing for a place in the 1500 metres at the Olympics for the 4th time. And also today, some good news for Lydia Ko in the golf, rocketing up the leaderboard, sitting just outside the top 5 and 3 or 4 shots off the lead in the closing stages of her 2nd round. So 2 more rounds to come in that, and of course she was a silver medalist in Rio, so she's put herself in contention going into these final 2 days. And then it's our track cyclists to finish things off, really. They go right up until the last day of the Games, which is Sunday. Still lots of events to come and perhaps a couple of medal hopes for them on the track down there in Izu.
Thanks, Clay. That is Clay Wilson live from Tokyo on what's been a massive day for our Olympians. A nasty crash at the Olympic velodrome has left Kiwi track cyclist Aaron Gate with a broken collarbone, burns and without a medal in Tokyo. The men's pursuit team were in a strong position in the race against Australia for bronze, but with just over a K to go, Gate clipped teammate Jordan Kirby's back wheel, sending Gate sliding across the track. His injuries have ended his own Olympic campaign. Aaron Gate says his 66 km/h spill remains a bit of a blur.
What happened is I just took a glance across the track to see where we were at against the Aussies at that moment after my turn, and looked up, and my front tyre was just slightly underneath Kirby's in front of me, and as we went into the banking, I didn't turn sharp enough, and that was it. I was sliding on the track just wondering what the hell happened. I've done this so many times, and it's just like, of course it has to happen at the Olympic Games when you're riding for a medal. It's just incredibly disappointing, really, more so for my teammates than myself.
Gates says he had a chance to talk to his family last night, saying his wife is devastated that his Olympic dream is over.
she was in tears. I think it meant, she's made a lot of sacrifices to help me get to this point too, and support me. So that was difficult, and it just shows that she really cares, I suppose, which is cool too. And the plan is still for her to come over in Europe and meet me with our son too. So looking forward to seeing them again too.
However, Gate, who's previously broken his other collarbone, remarkably hopes to be back in the saddle and racing in Europe within a week.
Prognosis is a collarbone that needs to be put back together, so I brought my original flight plan forward a couple of days and heading straight to Belgium to get collarbone repaired and get next week, hopefully on Monday. So all going to plan, potentially back on the bike by next week. So then I'll be resuming the season with the Black Spoke cycling team over there. Have sort of got a pretty heavy race program for the end of the season, so it'd be nice to hopefully get back on the bike as soon as possible.
Gate's been replaced by teammate Campbell Stewart for Thursday's Omnium and Saturday's Madison races. In breaking news, 2 people have been injured after being hit by a bus in Auckland's CBD. It happened on the corner of Fanshawe and Beaumont Streets. Both suffered moderate injuries, and a person has been critically injured after a serious crash between a car and pedestrian on Abbott's Way in the Auckland suburb of Remuera. There are calls for Wellington Regional Council to let students and community service card holders ride the city's buses and trains for free. A collective of unions, churches and student groups say Wellington's poor are struggling to cope with the capital's high costs. They say people who can't afford the capital's steep rents are being forced to live further away from the central city and are more reliant on public transport. Kirsty Frame has more.
Khushbu Singh is a student at Massey University. She says bus and train fares are so high she has to juggle what days she can afford to travel to her classes.
There's so many other living costs that money can be going towards, and the fact that I don't even get the full experience of my uni, I can't use all the facilities I need because I'm limiting myself.
More than 30 organisations have formed the Pōneke Collective for Public Transport Equity to lobby for a better deal. It says Wellington's public transport doesn't reflect the needs of its community and it does not allow people to live with dignity. Today, Mika Herville from the collective asked the Greater Wellington Regional Council to make public transport free for community service card holders and tertiary students.
Our vision is for public transport in the Greater Wellington region to be accessible to everyone, especially those on lower incomes. We see this as a matter of well-being so that people can be connected and can participate in everything that our region has to offer.
The push is influenced by Auckland Council's recent move to trial half-price public transport for low-income earners, thanks to government funding through the National Land Transport Fund. Wellington Regional Council has asked the government to extend the same deal to Wellington. It was turned down, but the government says it will consider a national rollout after the Auckland pilot. Wellington Regional Councillor David Lee says the delay will ensure cut-price fares are the right way to go.
I think good things always take time. It's very easy to say, let's do it. Let's go hard, go now, but it needs to be workable, it needs to be doable, so we actually need to find, is this the right approach?
The Regional Council says it will consider free fares in its annual plan process, but it wants to discuss the idea with central government. Councillor Darren Ponta says if the government does not help, the council may have to consider funding its own project. Grace Carr from the Victoria University Student Association says the council needs to do something soon.
I really don't think people can afford to wait. I mean, we're seeing the rising cost of rents, the rising cost of living, and wages are not rising to meet that. This is a big issue for people in our community and we really need action to be taken now.
The Pōneke Collective is taking its proposal to the Minister of Transport, Michael Wood, in September.
It is 17 minutes past 6 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. The New South Wales COVID outbreak has worsened again with a new daily high of 262 cases and 5 deaths. Health authorities say teenagers and people in their 20s are currently in ICU with the virus. Now, more and more pop-up AstraZeneca vaccination clinics are appearing in Sydney. Not that they're having much of an effect yet, but getting people vaccinated is key in grassroots campaigns like the clinics are building, as the ABC's David Sparks reports.
It's a sunny winter's day on the sports fields of Parry Park in Lakemba, and at one end is a pop-up AstraZeneca vaccine clinic. No appointment needed.
Why am I getting the AstraZeneca vaccine? A lot of reasons. First of all, for prevention. We're all a community, so we're kind of in this together. We're not alone. So if it's a prevention from me getting COVID and it stops me spreading it and it gets us up to 70% of people vaccinated in this country and we can go back to some sort of normality, I'm all for that.
Nurses from the pop-up clinic have also been walking around the park, inviting people over for a dose of AstraZeneca. One man who's been coming to the park every day to exercise since he lost his job was approached by the nurses on Monday. He needed a couple of days to think about it.
And I chatted to my doctor and they're like, listen, it's totally up to you. I mean, go get it if you feel like you want to. And I said, might as well, while I'm here, and the pop-up's only here for about 4 days anyways. And I just thought about it and I'm like, pull the trigger.
Hi there, you've just had your AstraZeneca shot. How did it go?
Excellent. Wonderful. I live down that street and my daughter and I have been vaccinated here because it's so convenient. Initially, I had wanted the Pfizer. So I was waiting on the Pfizer, but then this happened, this outbreak. So I go, well, I better get something, which is better than nothing.
One thing many pop-up clinics have going for them is their place in the community. At the Lao Cultural Centre in Edenza Park near Fairfield, a pop-up clinic was launched next to a Buddhist temple yesterday.
We are overwhelmed with the community response. We have over 200 people coming for vaccination.
Buntan Wansaya is president of Lao Community Advancement New South Wales. He says the pop-up clinic will operate every Wednesday.
We have some Cambodian and there are some Thai people. So basically majority, I would say, or probably 95% is Lao. The rest is other community.
Right, and was language much of a factor on day one? Was there much translating to be done?
Mainly Lao and Thai, so we have to help them with the understanding of the risk and the medical condition before they keep the jab.
A Belarusian sprinter who defied her country's attempts to send her home from the Olympics has arrived in Poland, where she's been given a humanitarian visa. Her husband has fled to Ukraine, although he says they would both be willing to return to Belarus if they knew they wouldn't be locked up. The BBC's Sarah Rainsford has more.
Kristina Timanovskaya left Japan with her Olympic dreams shattered, but her route to safety secured. The Belarusian athlete says she just wants to run. Her life was sport, not politics, until a row with her coaches left her too scared to go home. But here, inside Belarus, state television has slammed her claims as cheap hype. The only thing Timanovskaya won in Tokyo, this presenter says, is a Polish visa. On the streets of Minsk, though, we did find sympathy for the sprinter who's fled, because there is zero tolerance of dissent here now. We're all afraid, Dmitry says. Me too sometimes, because the situation is unstable. The danger is real. We passed the prison where opposition activists have been locked up since mass protests last year. But somehow, Maria Kolesnikova is still smiling. The protest leader appeared in court today, charged with plotting to seize power. She and a fellow activist are facing 12 years behind bars. Maria's father brought her flowers, but had to pass them on via her lawyer. Alexander hasn't been allowed to see his daughter for 10 months, an extra punishment. There's a small group of friends and family and supporters who've turned up here outside the court, but the trial's been declared closed, supposedly for security reasons, and none of these people are going to be allowed inside. They told me that's because there is no evidence. They believe this trial's all about scaring critics into silence.
In the UK, all 16 and 17-year-olds will be offered a COVID-19 vaccine in the coming weeks. That equates to about 1.5 million teenagers. A welcome addition to the vaccination rollout as the Delta variant continues to affect people of all ages. The BBC's Hugh Pym reports.
Lucy, who's 16, has had COVID twice, and she's disappointed she didn't qualify for a vaccination. But that will now change, and it's something to celebrate for Lucy and her mother, Barbara.
When I heard the news, I was really excited. It's made me really happy.
Punching the air, we were in the car.
Yeah.
So she was just like, yes!
The move follows advice to ministers from experts on the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation.
Vaccination of children and young people can bring benefits to other people, such as adults, and including parents and grandparents. But at the forefront is the health and the benefits to children and young people themselves.
But only last month, the JCVI said the benefits did not outweigh the risks.
We mustn't forget that the summer wave, as we're experiencing now, was also quite uncertain about 4 weeks ago, and now we have more information on that. So it's not just new data on one point, but it's new data across a range of factors that influence advice.
The committee had looked at more vaccine safety data following reports in the US of young people getting heart inflammation after receiving the Pfizer and Moderna jabs. But for 12 to 17-year-olds, it was fewer than 10 in a million after first doses, and most recovered quickly. Ministers in the 4 UK nations have all said that Pfizer jabs will now be offered to all 16 and 17-year-olds, following the advice of the experts.
They are all at one on this, that this is absolutely the right thing to do for all 16 and 17-year-olds. Of course, there's no compulsion in this, like all our vaccination offer. It's something for people to consider and to decide if there's something they want to do.
The Health Secretary said the rollout in England would start later this month, led by the NHS, but with no precise details yet. The drive to get 18-year-olds and over vaccinated continues. As for 16 and 17-year-olds, NHS leaders say up until now they've always followed JCVI advice and implemented any changes as quickly as possible. Under the law, 16 and 17-year-olds won't have to have parental consent to get a vaccine. We asked people in Weston-super-Mare how they felt about it.
I think it's a good idea because, especially since a lot of 16 and 17-year-olds are like the main people who are like constantly with each other and going out.
I mean, the only reservation is that down the line you could find out something's wrong with it and you never know.
I'd want to know a lot more about what the side effects might be before we went ahead.
Countries like the US and France are already vaccinating children as young as 12. That is possible in the UK for that age group if they have serious medical conditions or someone in their family does. But the rollout to all 16 and 17-year-olds will be a significant step, with school and university terms not far off.
In breaking news, all of Victoria will enter a 7-day lockdown starting at 8 p.m. tonight. Victoria Premier Daniel Andrews says he's doing all he can to avoid a New South Wales-style outbreak. Officials are concerned about an infected teacher at a school west of Melbourne and 3 new cases linked to her. The source of those infections are unknown. Here's the Premier, Daniel Andrews.
We've been through that long lockdown. We did that last year. We don't want to go back to that. And that's why these decisions are absolutely critical. And it's why we've made them as tough as they are. It's why we have made these decisions, and it's why I'm announcing them now. Now, you might ask, why not midnight tonight? Why is it effectively a snap lockdown? Well, the Miss Frankie's outbreak cases, there was transmission on the night of the lockdown last time. So this evening is go home. Go home and begin that lockdown. Don't be out and about, because all you might be doing is spreading this virus. Now, we'll go to questions in a moment, but you've got a document there that takes you through all of the rules. They are essentially the rules that applied last time. They're well understood. They have been very successful. They're painful. They're difficult. We wish it wasn't this way. I can't tell you how disappointed I am to have to be here doing this again. But with so few in the community with 1 vaccination, let alone 2, I literally have no choice.
And that was Premier Daniel Andrews. A US airline is defending its crew who used duct tape to subdue an unruly passenger who tried to grope and punch attendants on a flight from Philadelphia to Miami. At first, Frontier Airlines suspended the crew. Now they've changed tack. CNN's Pete Muntean reports.
New video from a weekend Frontier Airlines flight shows what flight attendants call the ugliest case of an unruly passenger yet. Shut the up! Miami-Dade police allege that passenger Maxwell Berry ordered 2 drinks, spilled a third on himself, emerged from the bathroom shirtless, then groped the breasts of 2 flight attendants. Police say a third flight attendant was assigned to watch Berry when he started throwing punches. Video then shows a flight attendant taping the passenger to his seat, prompting Frontier to initially suspend its flight crew from the job.
After an incident like this, we're going to do a thorough investigation and really review what happened, how it happened, and how it was handled.
Now, in a new statement, the airline says it is supporting the crew and the prosecution of Berry by law enforcement, an announcement that came after criticism from Sarah Nelson of the Association of Flight Attendants.
All the crew had on board that flight for any kind of restraint was duct tape. And so if we want flight attendants to be using other procedures, then we have to make that possible for them to have other tools and procedures to use.
Don't get in the middle of that. Don't just call the cops. Don't get in the middle of that, Sharon.
The TSA is restarting flight attendant self-defense training as in-flight issues are becoming more common. Of 3,700 cases reported to the FAA this year, so far only 99 have triggered enforcement action. Police have already charged Berry with 3 counts of battery, but flight attendants say prosecution of other problem passengers needs to be just as swift.
Are you scared?
Sometimes, a little bit, yeah. You get on a plane full of people and some of them aren't very happy and you just never know what's going to happen.
We have reached out to the passenger in this case, 22-year-old Maxwell Berry of Ohio. He has not returned our request for comment.
And we're almost out of time, but let's get to some of your last feedback here on voting at the age of 16. This person says, I started my business at 15. It was completely insane being old enough to do tax, but not to vote and have a say in what happens with tax. Now, ko te kaupapa tuatahi a pōpō on First Up from 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Sports New Zealand CEO Raylene Castles is live to wrap up New Zealand's Olympic campaign. Don't forget, you can watch Nick Willis on the track for the 1500 at 11 p.m. tonight. He runs, it'll be fab. Kia pai tōpō. Have a great night.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. Kayaker Lisa Carrington has become New Zealand's most successful Olympian by winning her 5th gold medal in Tokyo. New Zealand is a step closer to banning so-called gay conversion therapy after legislation criminalising the practice passed its first hurdle in Parliament. The government says it has reached a milestone of 8,000 additional public housing placements. Some Wellington organisations and businesses have formed an alliance protesting at the direction of the region's major transport program. And 2 people have been injured after being hit by a bus on a busy central Auckland street in the last hour. Our next news and weather is at 7.
If you think RNZ has breached formal standards, either on air or in our online content, you have the right to make a formal complaint. This must be made in writing to the broadcaster first, within 20 working days of the broadcast. To find out about those standards or to lodge a complaint, go to rnz.co.nz and type formal complaint into our search engine and you'll be directed to our formal complaints page. The standards were prepared by broadcasters including RNZ.
Kia ora, I'm Brian Crump, getting ready for another night on RNZ National, which commences officially after the news at 7. My first guest is Duncan McGilliry from the McDiarmid Institute. It's a regular look at the intersection of science fiction and reality. And tonight, that intersection involves the Terminator series.